What is up guys, Fahir here from AwesomeTuts.com. So there are a lot of tutorials for Unreal Engine using blueprints, but very few using C++. So me to the rescue. I'm going to create more C++ tutorials for Unreal Engine, and I'm going to start with the character movement. So basically, if I hit the play button, you will see that we have a character and we have a movement. Now, we're not doing anything exciting in this video. I have created another tutorial that I will post where we create a game, so don't worry about that. But I'm going to show you how we can implement this whole movement and everything from scratch only using C++. We will learn C++, we will learn how to bind actions in code and all of the good stuff, yada yada yada, because you will find a lot of tutorials for this using blueprints, but basically none using C++. So we need to fix that, okay? And yeah, so before we get into the tutorial, just smash the like button, subscribe, hit the notification, and make sure to check out my Ultimate Game Development Academy. Click the link below. I have there around 350 hours of content currently, 27 courses, and I add new courses monthly, and you can get in for a small monthly fee or a yearly fee, or even get lifetime access and never pay again. Just click the link below, check it out. I have Unreal Engine courses, Unity courses, I have Blender, I have Krita, all of their good stuff. Click the link below and check it out. Until then, Fahir here. Let's get into the video. So now that we saw the preview, what we are going to create, which is the character movement, let us get into it. And we are going to do everything in C++ because there are plenty of blueprint tutorials to do just what I'm going to show you right now. So let's go under New Project when you open your Unreal Engine project browser and go under C++, and you can select here the third person because I'm going to use the third person character. And here for the starter content, you can say no starter content because we do not need it. We simply need the game character, and that's all there is to it. So click on create project, and this is what you will see. If you hit the play button, you have not had, because you have a character that is moving, and this is what we are going to create. Exactly this what you see. I mean, you saw in the preview, but this is already built in, comes with the project. So I'm going to remove this. So select the third person character. I'm going to delete him from our scene. And what I'm going to do is inside of the classes over here, I'm going to go and right click and new C++ class, and it's going to inherit from the character. See over here, choose parent class. So we need to choose a parent class, and the parent class is going to be a character. And if I hover over of the character or on the character, it says a character is a type of pawn that includes the ability to walk around. So that is a character. Select the character, click on next, and over here I'm going to say char movement. So character movement, or actually this is already used, so we cannot use it like that. So I can say character underscore, or actually character movement like this. There you go. So I am going to click on to create the class. And of course, we need to wait a moment or two because the connection between my Visual Studio and Unreal Engine and how that goes and yada, yada, yada. I don't know what they do behind the scenes, but it takes a little bit of time. Now, let me just go over here inside of my tools and options, and the font is pretty large. So it's pretty large, and it's at 14. For some reason, it's still large. So yeah, I think this will do on 13. I don't know why it's large, but anyways, if you don't know anything about C++, it would be a good idea for you to go and to watch my C++ tutorial series. Just type AwesomeTuts C++ tutorials in YouTube search bar and you will find them. Now, given the fact that I have created this class, I can still go over here and inside of a folder that I'm going to call blueprints, because we need a blueprint to put the character inside of the game. We cannot put the class in the game, so I don't want you to be confused. Teacher, you said C++, but I'm using blueprints. No, man, don't worry. So over here, I can go in the blueprint class, so right click in blueprint class, and here I can click on all classes and search for the character movement. Here it is, our custom one that we have just created, and click on select, and I can call it character movement underscore BP. And double click on it and open it in the blueprint editor. Now, why am I doing this? Because I want to show you we have inherited the character. If you go back over here, you see we have inherited, that's actually in the .h. Public A character is our parent class, and it has already inside the capsule component, the mesh component, and the character movement, which we need to move the character. So I can select the mesh over here, and I can click on I can go over here inside of the mesh and click here, the skeletal mesh that is used, and select the mannequin, as you can see, this bad boy over here. And now I can also go here in the animation, which is all this is happening over here in my details tab. So this is the mesh that I've selected. This is the animation. So click on the drop down list and select the third person anim BP, which is his animation. This is already built in. I'm not going to go into animations. And I can now simply rotate my character to 117 degrees, and I can move him down, something like this, so that I can position him on the capsule. Now, notice here, when you move him up, you see he is moving by certain units. You see, currently he is at -70. If I move him down, he is at -80. Why? Well, because over here are those units, and you can see we're moving him by 10 units. So if you click on this list over here and select one, we're going to move him by 1 unit now. So I'm going to position him like this at 1 unit, which is easier for me to position him. And I think this is okay. Why am I doing all this before I program the character? Well, because we want to make sure that that character is the one that we spawn in our game. Even though we deleted the third person character a moment ago, if I hit the play button, he will still be spawned. The reason for that is because if I go in the project settings and then over here in maps and modes, so project settings and maps and modes, here the default game mode is the one that is built in with our game, which means over here for the selected game mode, I cannot select who is the default pawn. So we need to go back over here and I need to right click and in the blueprint class, and here in all classes, I need to search for game mode and click on the game mode and select it. So we're going to inherit from the game mode. I'm going to call it my game mode BP. Why is this important? Because now I can go back in the project settings and here for default game mode, I can click on this drop down list and I can select my game mode BP. Here it is, which now allows me to select here who is the default pawn or the default game player who is going to be spawned in our game. And if I click on this drop down list, I can select my character. So I can say character movement BP, and this is what I said. We cannot spawn a class inside of a game, but we can spawn a blueprint created from that class, which is character movement BP. And over here we selected character movement BP. So if I go over here and hit the play button, now we have him. But I need to eject him for you to see. So here he is. And now we can start programming him because now he is inside of our game and we can start to program his movement and all of the good stuff. So we can do all of these things that I'm going to show you. We can do them right here inside of the component. So I can go over here, attach a camera on him, attach a spring component, but I'm going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here in the .h file. What is the .h file? Again, when you create a C++ class, you will have a .cpp file and a .h file. In the H file, you will declare all the variables and everything that you want to use, such as, for example, float for power, integer for health, or that is vice versa. Float is for health, integer is for power, and all the functions that we are going to use as well. You are going to declare them over here. And then we are going to implement those right here. So that is the difference between them. And again, go and watch my C++ tutorial series if you don't know what I'm talking about. So over here, first of all, in the include, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to include all of the components that we need. And it's really important that you include them above this .generated H. So it's really important that you include everything that I'm going to talk about above it. So over here, I'm going to type include, so include, and this is everything that we're going to use, and that is going to be our components. So components, and then slash, and here we're going to say input component. Here it is because we want to bind the input. We're also going to include over here game. So game framework slash, and this is going to be controller H. Also include, so it's include, make sure that you type it correctly, not misspell it like I did. Game framework, so framework, and then slash, and we're also going to include the character movement component because we need to use it in order to move our character. So again, include, and here we have the camera, and slash camera component, there you go, and include, this is the last include that we are going to use, so include slash over here in quotes, and actually in quotes, and then over here we're going to say game framework / now spring arm component. So there you go. So these are the includes that we need. So let's go right here below the public where the a character movement, which is the constructor that is declared. I'm going to declare a U property, which is going to be visible anywhere. And we're going to see in a moment what that is. And I'm going to say here blueprint read only. And I'm going to say category is going to be equal to camera. There you go. And this is going to be U spring component, so spring arm component, which is a pointer. That's why I need to add this asterisk over here, and I'm going to call it camera boom. There you go. And I am also going to copy this and paste it below, and this one is going to be a U camera component, and over here I'm going to call it follow camera. Now, what the hell is this U property visible anywhere blueprint read only? This will allow us to see this inside of the blueprint of our character, and the blueprint read only will only allow us to read it and not edit this from the blueprint, which means we cannot change any of the settings and so on and so forth. And over here, I'm also going to declare void move forward, which is going to take a float axis like this, and void move right, which is also going to take a float axis. And this is what we are going to use for the movement. But don't worry, I will explain everything. We will do it all. Don't worry about it. And I'm going to go and implement these two. So we're going to go over here. And this is the character movement constructor that I've talked about or mentioned him a moment ago. And if you don't know what is a constructor, please make sure that you watch my C++ tutorial series. So what we are going to do over here is, first of all, I'm going to say B use controller rotation pitch is equal to false. So over here, and what the hell is this? Well, basically, I'm not going to allow the controller to rotate. Instead, I'm going to allow the camera to rotate the controller. So here, I'm also going to say B use controller rotation yaw. I'm also going to say that false. These are basically the rotation on X, Y, and Z. So this is what I'm doing. And B use controller rotation roll is also equal to false. So I'm not going to allow those. I'm not going to allow them to rotate the player. Instead, I'm going to allow the controller to rotate the player. Now, what I need to do is get the character movement. So there you go. And the character movement that we're getting is this right over here. That's the character movement. And for the character movement, we are going to say like this. So slash, or actually minus sign, and then greater than sign, because this is a pointer. And here I need to say B orient rotation to movement to be equal to true, because this is going to rotate the character towards the direction where he is moving. So the direction where he is moving. And now we need to specify, so get character movement, we need to specify the rotation rate, which is going to be equal to F rotator, and 0 for the X, and for the Y it's going to be 540, and again 0 for the Z. We don't need that. So this is the rotation rate by which we are going to rotate. And I'm also going to say get character movement, and here I'm going to say jump Z velocity is going to be equal to 600. This is the velocity when we jump. And get character, so get character movement like this, and we're going to say here air control is equal to 0.2. The air control is basically how much can we control the character while he is in the air when he has jumped. So now let us create the camera and the camera arm component. So our camera boom is going to be equal to create default sub object type of U spring arm component, and the name of it is going to be, and we're going to put that in a text, so inside of a text in quotes, which is a string because that's the name, and the name is going to be camera boom. There you go. And for the camera boom, so camera boom, I'm going to call it like this, minus and greater than sign, because this is a pointer, and I'm going to say set up attachment, and we're going to attach it to the root component. Now, what is a root component? It's basically this over here. You see, this is the root component, our capsule component. So this right over here is the root component, and we will see now, after we compile this in a moment, that here we will have the camera boom and the camera. So attach it to the root component, and I'm also going to set the length of the camera boom. So camera boom, and here we are going to say target arm length is going to be equal to 300. This is how far the camera boom is going to be away from the player. And lastly, I'm going to say camera boom over here, and I'm going to say use pawn control rotation is going to be equal to true, and this is going to rotate the arm based on the controller, and the arm is our camera boom. So let's now attach the camera on him. So here I'm going to say follow camera, and that's going to be equal to create default sub-object of U camera component like this. And I'm going to call it, and here is the name of it, and it's going to happen within a text, and I'm going to call it follow camera. There you go. So this is the name of it. Now, same as what we did for the camera boom, we have attached it on the root component, but for the camera, I'm going to say follow camera, and we are going to say set up attachment, and we're going to attach it on the camera boom because the camera boom is the one who is holding the camera. And we need to specify or how to adjust the controller rotation, and for that I'm simply going to say use spring arm component colon socket name, and this is going to let the use spring arm component do that for us. And the last step is to call the follow camera and disable, so use pawn control rotation is equal to false for the camera because we gave that control to the camera boom. So let's Control Shift B to compile this, or on Mac I assume it's Command Shift B, or simply go here under build and click on build solution, and there you go. So let's make sure that I didn't do any oopsies, and I didn't do them, so here build has succeeded. So if I go back now and for some reason my Unreal Engine has crashed, so let's restart this bad boy. This happens. I don't know why, but it happens because, yeah, let's restore the selected because why not? And there you go. Let's go back here in my blueprints, and this is my third person, or actually I don't want the third person character. I want to go here in blueprints and I want my character movement. I want to put him over here and open full blueprint. Come on, and let's select the character. And you see now, if I go here in the viewport, bam, you see, we have the camera boom, and you see this red line, how far away is from the player. The reason for that is because it is this right here. That's the target arm length. And you notice over here, as I said, we attach it on the root component. See, capsule component, I have folded it. If I click on it to drop down, the camera boom is a child of it, and the camera is a child of the camera boom. So if I go back over here and play the game now, this is our character. Now I can eject, and this is, well, the character, as you can see right over here. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to bind the movement of our character, and that happens over here in the project settings and then input. I'm going to delete all of these input actions and mappings because by default we have them. They are there by default because we selected our third person character and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do here in the action mappings, I'm going to click on the plus button, and here is one of our action mappings, and I'm going to call this one jump. So I'm going to say jump. This is the name of that action. And that action will be called when I call the space bar. So space bar over here, which means here I have selected what I want to press on my keyboard in this case, which is the space bar, and it will call this action mapping. And we will see in a second how that goes. For the axis mappings over here, I'm going to click on the plus button. And here for this axis mapping, this one is going to be move forward because we want to use it to move forward. For here, for the scale, as you can see, we have the scale by 1, which means over here, I'm going to go under keyboard and select the W key. So here it is, W key. And now click this plus button, not this over here, but this plus button referring to the move forward. So click on it. And this scale is going to be -1. And over here, I am going to filter under keyboard for the key S. And you can also filter, this is basically for the movement as you have guessed. So forward is W, backwards is S. That's why we set it to be positive for W and negative for S, because forward is positive, backwards is negative. And you can also add here, for example, you can add another plus button, and over here you can go and select the up arrow or the left arrow. You get the point. This is how you can configure the movement. Now I'm going to click on the plus button over here and create another axis for move right. And for the positive one, I'm going to select D. So go on keyboard, and here I'm going to select D. There you go. And click here plus again to add another action that we're going to press, which in this case is going to be action A. So when we press A on our keyboard, this right here is going to be negative, by the way. For A is negative, for D is positive, because moving to the left side is negative, moving to the right side is positive. And we need 2 more to control the rotation of the player with the mouse. So I'm going to click on the plus, and this right over here, this one is going to be turn, so how we're going to turn left and right. And over here I'm going to select the mouse, and it's going to be mouse X, there you go. And we are going to leave this at 1, so it's going to be 1. And click here on the positive or on the plus. And over here, we are going to have the look up. So look up rate, which is going to control the up and down of the mouse, and it's actually, of the rotation, and we're going to use mouse Y. But for it, we are going to say negative, and we're going to say or see in a moment why I typed over here negative. So if I go back right now, while we set this up, over here inside of the setup player input component, this is where we are going to control or create these bindings. So we use the player input component, and we say dash, and then greater than sign, because this is a pointer, and I'm going to say bind axes, and the name of the axis is turn, because we want to bind the turn one, which is this one over here that we have created, which means when we use or move our mouse X, it is going to be called, and we are going to bind it inside of this, meaning this referring to this class, the player, the character, the pawn using this class. And since we have inherited from the character over here, public A character, we have inherited from him, over here I'm going to say and we are going to call a pawn, colon, so it's a pawn, colon, add controller, so add controller yaw input. Now this add controller yaw input is going to control the yaw rotation. If we go back over here in the character movement, if you click on the character and go here on the control, actually on the rotation, you will see that the X is roll, Y is pitch, and Z is yaw. And if I rotate, and pay attention how the character is rotating left and right. So the mouse movement over here is going to control the yaw rotation. This add controller yaw input is a function from a pawn. And we are going to do the same thing for our look up. So player input component dash greater than sign bind axes. And here we're going to say look up inside of this. And again, and sign a pawn, colon, and this is going to be add controller pitch input. So here it is, the pitch input. And if I control shift B to compile this, we are going to see now how are we going to move and rotate, or actually just rotate our camera with the mouse button. So we will see now in a moment, actually with the mouse itself. So the build has succeeded, we didn't fail. If I go back now, compile and save this over here, and if I hit play, you see how now I am able to rotate with the mouse, because we added that to the pawn. And if I go back over here just to show you why I set here -1 for the mouse Y, because this is the inverse. Notice what I mean by that. Now, because it's positive, if I move up, it goes down. And if I move down, and actually do we need to, let me just go over here. This is for the mouse Y. I set the scale to +1, and let me just go over here, Control Shift B to compile this, because when you set it like that, it is the inverse, which means when you move the mouse up, it goes down. And compile has saved, and it has succeeded. And let me just try and save this, and over here compile and save everything. So you see now, if you move the mouse up, if you move the mouse down, actually I'm moving it down, but the look of the mouse is going up. I'm moving the mouse up, but it's going down. You see, it's the inverse. It is the inverse. If I go back over here and set the negative, if you have played any first-person shooter game, you will notice in controls you can set the invert of the mouse. This is what we are doing. So now when I set it to -1, if I move the mouse up, it is moving up, and if I move the mouse down, it is moving down. So that's that inverse over here that we have set. So Control Shift or save everything, and there you go. Now I'm going to bind the jump, and in order to bind the jump, we simply again need to call the player input component dash and greater than sign. We're going to say bind action, and the name of the action is jump. So if you remember, it's jump, which was over here. Here is the jump, which means the space bar is responsible for it. And here I'm going to bind it inside of this, but before that, I'm also going to bind IE pressed. So I also want to detect when it's pressed and when it's released, and binding it inside of this. And I'm going to call here and sign a character colon jump. This is a function already built inside of the character responsible for the jump. And if I go back and copy this, because we're also going to call over here IE release, because when we release the button over here, I'm going to say stop jumping, because we also want to stop the jumping as same as how we initiated it. And again, this character jump is created, this function is already inside of our character, and we will see what that means now when we implement our own functions that we have declared over here, which is move forward and move right, which will happen in a moment after this, so don't worry about that. And wait for this to come on, yada 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 yada. Build test succeeded, thank you, finally. So if I go back over here now, and if I hit the play button, pay attention now. When I hit the space, bam, we are jumping, you see? Bam, we are jumping. Clicking the space and releasing the space, now we have started to, well, we are jumping and then we stop jumping. So that's all there is to it. But basically, as I said over here, this is declared in the character. What do I mean declared in the character? Well, let's go over here and notice now we have these green lines below our move forward and move right. That means we need to implement this. Remember, I said here we declare and here we implement. So we need to implement these two functions, and we can right click on them, quick actions and refactoring, and click here create definition of move forward in character movement, which will do that for us. And here it is. Here is our move forward. Let's do the same thing with the move right. So right click, actions and refactoring, click on here, and there you go. So now we can go back over here. I'm going to take this and copy it, and I'm going to paste it right here below. So now we have the move forward and move right. So same as how these functions are declared, this one is in the pawn, this one is in the character. These are now declared in my script over here, which is called a character movement, which means now I can do this. I can go over here, I can say player input component, and I can bind axes, and I can bind the move forward inside of this and sign, and simply copy all of this over here and paste it. There you go. So now I have binded the move forward, which is this over here in the input. Here is our move forward, which means when we press the W or the S key, this over here will be called the move forward, which is this function. Make sure also that the name over here and the name over here matches, because we have move forward capital M, capital F. If you don't put here capital M, capital F, this will not work. So there you go. You need to match these names. And I'm going to copy this and paste it over here. And here I'm going to say move right. And also here, I'm going to say move right, because I want to bind the move right. So now when we press the W or the S key or A or the D key, the respective functions will be called. But what's going to happen inside of those functions when we call them? Well, first of all, for the move forward, we need to calculate where is the forward direction. So over here, I'm going to say F rotator, and I'm going to call this one rotation. It's going to be equal to controller, and we're going to get the rotation from the controller, and we're going to do that by saying get controller rotation. And it's not like this, but it's not giving me get controller rotation. Thank you. It's not giving me the autocomplete that I want. Now that we have the rotation, we need to get again, so F rotator, and I'm going to call this one yaw rotation, and that's going to be equal to 0 for the X, and for the Y, it's going to be rotation.yaw and 0 for the Z, so 0.0 F. There you go. And now we need to get the forward vector. And we can do that by creating here an F vector. Vector is a variable that has X, Y, and Z axis. And rotation is also a variable that has X, Y, and Z for the rotation. And I'm going to call this one direction, and it's going to be equal to F rotation matrix. And then inside, we're going to pass the yaw rotation that we got over here. And next, we're simply going to say dot get unit axes, not axes, not plural, but singular. And we are going to get the forward and the forward is the x-axis. So we are going to say a axis like this, colon, x. This is going to get us the forward axis. Now, I don't know how this functions behind the scene, what math calculations are in this, so I don't know. But this is going to get us the forward direction of the player. That means over here in the character, you see, if I select the character, it's going to give me this, the green one. You see, the green one going forward. So it's going to get me his forward, well, direction. And next, we simply need to call add movement input, passing the direction and passing comma, passing the axis. Now, what the hell is this axis? Well, the axis is the parameter, and this will be passed depending on which button we are pressing. So if we press the W, the axis will be equal to 1. If we press S, the axis will be equal to -1. So this is that parameter. And for the move right, we're going to do the exact same thing. So simply copy all of this over here and paste it, except over here, we're not going to check for the forward direction. Instead, we are going to check for the right direction, and we do that by passing Y over here instead of the X. So everything is the same. Get the rotation, get the yaw rotation, check here for the direction on the right side, and then put that in the add movement input, which is available to us from the controller, from the character movement actually, which is this bad boy over here. So if I Control-Shift-B to compile this, now we have the complete movement of our character, all created in C++ from scratch, and we created that movement. And by we, I mean you and I. So let's go back now, and here inside of our game, if I hit the play button, and now if I start moving the character, you see, he is rotating towards the movement direction. That is possible only because I set this over here. Orient rotation to movement, I set that to true. So now if I move him to the right side, he will rotate to the right side. If I move him to the left, he will rotate to the left. Move forward, rotate forward. Move backwards, he will rotate backwards. And depending on the axes over here, so currently, if I press S, he will move backwards. But if I rotate the camera and press S, he will move to this side, which previously was his left side. So you get the point. So there you go. Jumping and rotating and everything inside of with our character completely created with C++ from scratch. You and I did it. Congratulations. So this is the complete character movement with the keyboard and with the mouse. So there you go. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, consider subscribing and liking the video, sharing and commenting and all of the good stuff. Hit the notification button. Also, I have much more tutorials in my Ultimate Game Development Academy. Click the link below. I'm running a limited promotion where you can enroll for a very, and I have issues talking, very small monthly fee, literally a cup of coffee per month, or I don't know, 1 hamburger or 2 hamburgers per month. You can get access to currently 27 courses that I have in the academy with around 350 hours of content. You will learn Unreal Engine, Unity Engine, Blender, not Game Maker. Actually, I do have Game Maker as well. Godot Game Engine, and also you will learn Krita, how to create your own 2D and 3D assets and all of the good stuff. Just click the link below and check it out. You will see all the info there. You can enroll on a monthly fee, on a yearly or lifetime subscription, or actually lifetime access. That's no subscription. You pay once and you don't pay anything again. So click the link below, check it out. And until next tutorial, Fire here from AwesomeTudes.com. I will see you guys then.